that happen. It's fine. So, if you want to press ahead.
Well, there are several parts to what I'll be showing today, and I can start talking about the first two of those without using the computer here. So what I've got here, and what I'm sort of showing off is.
Hey! It just needed us to ignore it.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
I didn't do it.
Did you like my Blade Runner glitch effect?
There we go.
Yeah, looks like the cables are not doing great. So
Yeah, she only had 6. She only got 6. Okay, well, we will mess with cables if and when needed. So, thank you. No problem. This is my guitar rig. It's not really a product that I have invented or a device that I've invented myself, but I have put together a set of devices that other people have invented in a novel and interesting way to create a system that that allows me, or will allow me, to do a lot of the strange guitar processing that I have always wanted to do, sort of expand the realm of what guitar can do. A lot of my, all of my music is purely experimental, droney, not standard. So this system isn't designed like many guitar systems on the market. It's not designed to create a classic sound or enable people to have the best sounding distortion ever, or many of the standard guitar objects that people are looking for. But it's designed to give me a hugely wide range of processing capabilities, and it ends up sounding a lot like guitar synthesis. And in fact, we sort of blur the line of what synthesis and signal processing is, but this is an all signal processing system. That is, I'm not converting sound into MIDI and then triggering a synthesizer. The sound from the guitar is the sound that comes out, albeit vastly, vastly processed. The system as a whole, the rig as a whole, consists of sort of 3 parts. The guitar itself, that's got this strange electromagnetic sustainer device on it. Then there's a 6-channel pickup, which allows me to send each of the strings, the signal from each one of the strings of the guitar, into the processor independently, totally independently. And in the processor, which is this thing called the Eventide H9000, which is a ridiculously expensive signal processor that's just come out. It's designed to basically it's set up as actually I'll do that second. And sorry, I'm going to ramble a little bit today because I'm pretty basic. The guitar. Let's start there. The guitar's a relatively standard guitar, an odd shape. I make the body shapes in this way so that I can get the guitar to sort of sit when I'm sitting at any angle that I want. So it's sort of ergonomically designed, and I've put this little adjustable leg rest on it so that I can move it to various different heights and different chairs. And you'll notice that if I stood up, imagine I have a guitar strap on, the guitar sort of hangs right there. So I was sick and tired of turning my body and shifting around. So first of all, there's a sort of funky ergonomic shape to the guitar. The main weird thing about this guitar, though, is this device called the VO96. Are any of you all familiar with a device called the Libo for guitar? What it is a handheld electromagnetic device that essentially takes the signal, you hold it next to the guitar string, and it hears the signal from the guitar string, amplifies it, and then routes it back out a magnetic transducer and creates a magnetic field that is basically the amplified guitar string vibrating, which causes the guitar string to continue to vibrate. It's basically an electromagnetic feedback loop, right? Well, so it's a cool little device. This guitar has a separate one of those for each string. So if I just play a note, it will go on forever. If I play a chord,
Turn that down a little bit.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I can do it from But it gets a whole lot deeper than that, actually. This device, if you imagine you've got a device that is vibrating the string, right, at a certain place on the string. This one actually has, for each string, it has 6 pickups and 6 drivers. And strings vibrate with different harmonics at different places on the string. So the signal processor that's inside this can actually control the harmonics of the string by hearing what harmonics are present, what signal is present at those 6 pickup locations, and then driving the 6 drivers, either driving them in a positive direction or in a negative direction at any given time, and essentially control the waveform of that the string is producing, control the harmonics that the string is producing. So, if I play a note, I play a note, it continues on, right? I can bring in more high harmonics. Or this string, maybe a little more obvious. Or if I want to, I can modulate the harmonics. You can hear sort of that the harmonics are vibrating. Or cycle through harmonics on the string.
What's going on there?
What is it that brings out one harmonic or another?
It's driving, it's looking for a spot where a particular harmonic is happening on the string. Which one of those 6 is loudest at the moment, right?
It's in that, just that area right there.
It's just in that area because the harmonics basically repeat up and down the string over and over again. So it then figures out which drivers to push and pull to actuate or hold back various harmonics. So there are no effects going on at all. Like if you put your ear up to this thing without touching it, that's what it sounds like. It's actually a little more rich because the pickups are doing some funny stuff. But so you can get. You can also do some interesting things like, this is the odd and even harmonics. These are just the even harmonics sustaining. These are just the odd harmonics sustaining. The nice thing about that is that various, wasn't
I just took the screen off.
driving you crazy? Odd harmonics are more prevalent, like woodwinds have really heavy odd harmonics. So you get sort of a clarinet-ish sound. And again, I'm not trying to emulate any particular sound. It's just, this. So what this gives me is this ability to essentially control the harmonics of my string, or if you think about it from a synthesis standpoint, control the shape of my oscillator. I'm controlling the content of my various oscillators here. So I sort of think, or you can think of the guitar as 6 independent oscillators that are running, and you can pan them anywhere in the world that that you want. You can process each one of those oscillators separately. So that's a little bit about the guitar. You'll see me adjust harmonic amounts and turn the modulators on and off through the evening. Yeah, okay. So that's the basics of the guitar. That's some of the fun things that the guitar can do. The pickup system is a lot more straight ahead, very brief. It's this system called the Sci-Fi New pickups, and they make these little modules that are individual string modules, and you can plug as many of them together as you want, essentially, and then run them to one of several breakout boxes, which is this little device here. That basically is just taking an analog guitar signal and running it down this really freaking nifty 19-pin cable. I was rambling about this earlier. This is a Libo connector cable, and there are 19 little tiny freaking pins in there, and it is the coolest freaking connector I've ever seen. It took me forever to find it, and being that kind of guy, I'm going to tell you about the damn connector. You can't plug it in the wrong way. If I just slam it in there, I can't harm it at all. As I'm plugging it in, the connectors can't get bent. Once it's in, it locks. So I can't pull it out by accident, unlike a guitar cable. And if I do want to get it out, you just grab onto the collar right there, and that releases it. It's like a brilliant design. Also, just absurdly expensive. So you're never going to see these things on like a regular guitar product. They're several $100s for the connector set. So
It won't be a Guitar Center?
it will not be a Guitar Center. Roland were at this meeting, and there was a proposal to increase the capability of MIDI, but it was going to use a different connector. And Yamaha and Roland, being the biggest synthesizer manufacturers in the world, said the connector can't cost more than 11 cents. Because if it does, we already own millions of these. We have millions of these things made. We have them stockpiled. They cost more than 11 cents. We're going to have to add to the price of our equipment. So that one little freaking thing held up the expansion of an entire format that we all need in life. Okay, so that's the guitar and the pickup system. The signal then goes from the back of that little device into the signal processor, into the Eventide. There's a 25-pin multi-pin connector back there, so I'm running analog into the Eventide, and then I'm just running analog stereo out of the Eventide. The way the H9000, the Eventide, is set up is like 4 separate engines, basically, 4 separate effects processors. This will be where this is when this is going to start being necessary and making sense. Please work.
Which Mac OS are you running?
That should not matter.
Daisy chain and video connectors is always a recipe for something like this.
You don't really have any other inputs.
I worked that recipe a lot.
Well, there's definitely a bug in High Sierra where rebooting my computer makes it connect to external monitor.
Ah, okay.
If you're not running High Sierra, you don't have that.
No, okay. I really don't want to restart because I'm on a funky network and you can.
Yeah, right here.
That's why we're getting the dots, the time.
Oh, yeah. I said,
Hang on. We know which one it is now.
This is a great
Hey.
Don't freaking touch the Ethernet.
Don't breathe, don't walk.
Okay, so the way this device is set up is in 4 separate engines, and each one of these engines affects chains, they're called. Really?
Is there something someone can just hold? I volunteer to hold it.
Hold it.
You gotta quit
Give it a wiggle.
Do we have
And then hold
another? I didn't bring any more Ethernet.
Was it the top one?
It was the top one. No, it was the bottom one.
Hey. Oh. Hey.
No.
You don't usually see that.
Yeah.
It's just
That's why people come
Yeah,
up with new technology.
What did you do before?
You just stood there. Yeah.
When all else kick it.
Now, that connector only costs 11 cents.
You know, Ethernet cables cost way less than that. You can buy them for $5. They don't cost 2 cents. Oh, come on, please, please, please. This is where I want to. Come on, you little poop.
You can
That is on the
exercise
back
your
side of this connector.
you can exercise your poetic skills and describe what you want to see on the screen.
Ah, there it goes. It just pops straight on through. Okay, well, that ain't gonna work now. Here's your problem. Okay, well,
Well, now it's back.
all right, really quick. I'll talk very fast. Each one of the engines
Yeah.
has 4 effect algorithms that it can run. So I basically have 16 effects that I can run. Each one of those effects can have 8 input channels and 8 output channels. So the idea is to design a system where I am processing each individual string separately, right? So I should back up and say the state that the system is in right now is sort of a proof of concept stage, where I now know that all of this is going to work, and I have connected pieces together, and I've started to get some very nice output out of the whole thing, but it's the programming for it is really at the very beginning. I now have to do all of the freaking programming to make the signal processing system work. But here, we'll do I'll show you some cool tricks that it can do. If you imagine that we have individual processing for each string, one of the things that I can do, I don't know what you can see and what you can't, is I could pitch shift each one of the strings individually. So that's without any pitch shifting. I can basically put myself into different tunings instantly by just selecting different tuning presets. And I was going to talk about how I arranged everything and all of that shit. So, a different tuning. Yet a different tuning. Okay, so that was the same one. Something is up.
Two tunings going at once.
I do have 2 tunings going at once, basically, because I didn't mute the second tuning.
Built-in harmonizer.
Well, there are built-in harmonizers. It being eventide, it's there we go. There's one tuning. Imagine going into another tuning, or here's one tuning, and now I'm going to turn on a second tuning that's an octave up from that. So you get like a 12-string guitar effect. There are actually a lot of, there's a whole series of devices out there on the market right now that do just that. Basically, they'll allow you to retune your guitar electronically by doing this very same trick. What pretty much none of them do is allow you to do much other processing on each individual string. So that's what I want. Come on, please. Always doing your own shit. Let's see if I can get So my concept with this effects box is I've got these 4 engines, and I'm running signal from the first to the second to the third to the fourth, and then out. My idea is I would take the first engine, and I haven't done all of this yet, but my idea was I'd take the first engine, and the first thing that the signal would hit would be an equalizer and a compressor, some things to make each of the strings sound more pleasant, to maybe emulate different types of pickups, which can be done very easily using an EQ. For example, this is going to be very undramatic, but most pickups have a frequency response, something kind of like this, which is just a filter cut off at about 2K with a really steep Q. Or without that, it sounds kind of thinner. You have more high frequency and it sounds thinner. So the idea would be there would first be a system that would process the pickups a little bit, and then we would go into the harmonization, where I would emulate things like what tuning the guitar is in. If I've got 12 string, if I'm doubling the strings with 12 strings, and then move on to things like distortion. Let me see if I can get to my distortion chain here. Is it working or not?
It's on basically.
Hex versus mono distortion demo. This might get loud. Oh, good. Good, it didn't. And then another interesting and fun feature of this particular effects box is I can plug in multiple USB controllers just to the USB ports in the front, and it acts as a USB host. So I can plug in my soft step or these knobs directly and assign any pedal or any knob to any control that I want, which hopefully will work. Oh, look at that! It is going to work. Okay, so in distortion. First of all, one of the other few things that other products on the market have is hexaphonic distortion, 6-channel distortion, because in regular distortion, all the strings are routed to one output. You go into your distortion pedal or into your amp, right? That results in a sound that's a little bit like that. Individual notes sound pretty good. But when you start to play chords, things get really muffled really quick. If you try to play dissonant harmonies, it kind of sounds like shit really fast. But if you take each individual string and apply a different, separate distortion to it, you get a much clearer sound. Or if I play the dissonant harmony, you can still pick out the 2 notes.
Can we play the strings separately so I can hear it?
Okay.
Hey, I have a question. So, and typically, like if you had a spectrogram and like old school distortion, what would be the difference in the spectrograms if you looked at this new distortion versus the old one?
I haven't, but what you would probably see would be more like if you were looking at the spectrogram of all 6 of the separate distortions plugged together, you would probably see something that looked like stacked harmonics, like 2 sets of harmonics there. Whereas if you had mixed all the sounds together first and then applied the distortion drives the harmonics enough, you'd probably see 1 set of harmonics, is what I would think. But the ultimate end effect, you end up with a sound that does sound a little bit more like a synthesizer than a rock and roll guitar. But that's that can be a pleasant thing. So. Those of you who are into
Does it sound like if you push the individual strings closer to the saturation point, like because with everything adding up and then saturating, like a classic distortion, you further into that nonlinear territory with the hexagon stuff.
Yeah.
Do you have a way to like crank the?
Absolutely.
The
I have basically every freaking control at my. Well, in theory, at my fingertips, but I can assign, any parameter. I wish you could see some of it. I can assign any parameter to a controller, or I can, in addition to the algorithms that are running on here now, I can write my own algorithms using a little program that looks a lot like Max MSP called VSig for this app, and. One of the probably my next biggest development effort is going to be starting to write myself my own hexaphonic effects for this box. Because most of the effects that are in here right now are stereo, or they're mono in and stereo out. So what I've done in... easy to point out to you. What I'm doing in a couple of the engines right now is I take 3 stereo effects and I just run them in parallel.
Right.
Now that's really inefficient considering I only have 16 slots total to do all of the processing that I want to do. I don't want to use up 3 for one stereo effect. So as soon as I have some time, I'm going to take those, one copy of that effect, put it in this environment, and duplicate it out so I have hex versions of every single effect. Then I'll be able to have a truly all the way through signal path. Why would any of this matter? One of the things, I want to write a new hex distortion. I'd like to write a hexaphonic ring modulator where each one of the strings has a different frequency that it's modulating. Let's see if I can run through a couple of more standard effects here.
So you say you're going to write these with
in VSig, which is VSig is the built-in programming environment for Eventide, and it is a royal pain in the ass to use. It's written, I think, in the early 90s and never really updated. Turned each one of them on and off in succession. So this particular algorithm just turns a string on and off. It's just sitting there sustaining, and that one's turning on and off. Thrilling, right? Start to play chords, and things start to get maybe decidedly more interesting, or potentially more interesting. It's essentially an arpeggiator. And somewhere between, 2 months and 9 months from now, when I get out and do a concert, I will have figured out how to do something really musically interesting with that. I have actually assigned this one to this controller here, and I can start getting kind of cool with it. Each one of so what I'm here we go. Let's just do A string. Let's see, that's my 4th string. So now, in addition to changing I want it to clearer demonstration. 1 sec. Edit that. Aha! The mix was not correct. Hold please, da bum ba da bum bum ba da dum ba dum ba dum ba ba da da dum dum bum bum ba da dum ba dum bum bum ba da dum bum bum ba da dum dum. Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing it. Dum 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 da da dum.
Tequila!
So I can turn the sounds on and off, but I could also have a sequence of pitches. So this one and the one next to it. I can also sequence some effects. Now things start to get like actually kind of something and more like, holy crap, I'm kind of playing a modular synthesizer here. So one could imagine one of these algorithms that I finish writing being an 8-channel effect that would have just an on-off switch on it, and a pitch shifter on it, and a filter on it, all of which I could control from an external step sequencer. So then I've got basically the control to turn off, change the pitch, and do filtering and EQing sorts of sounds on every one or each one of my strings. And start to be able to do, let's see if this is even, oh yeah. And see, if I had a modular synthesizer in front of me, I would be allowed to do a concert that consisted of nothing but this for 2.5 hours. Although I would,
But you're not allowed. You need 5 friends with modular synthesizers to hang out while you do whatever.
but I would then have to add some more effects in. And there all I've done is I'm taking those 6 signals, the individual processing signals that I've got, and now I'm running them through just a series of regular stereo effects. I bounce them down to just 2 channels, left, right, left, right, left, right, and run them through some external effects. Or not external effects, but additional effects. So my overall concept of the engine would be, the first engine does the very basic stuff. It does like pickup emulation, my volume pedal, volume swelling. You could imagine being able to have a system that controls how quickly the attack happens on each note on each string. And the basic pitch shifting. Then the second engine would do some exciting, strange chopping processing, like that sort of stuff. The third engine would be able to do modulation and delays, and then the last engine would sort of fill things out with reverbs and other time-based effects. Let's see what else. Oh. Now, many of these, there's Megapad. A lot of these work much nicer with a
Amplifier?
No, with a volume pop pedal. So this is really just one of the hexaphonic effects. It's a reverse shifter. If I just play one quick note, that's what comes out. But if I hold the chord, you get much more into sort of the synth world. And then with, in theory, let's see if I got, no, I didn't sign that correctly. Assigning a filter to it, change some of the output effects. Let's see. Maybe another type of crazy ass pad. Oh yeah, I'm not sure quite what these are going to do. Let's see, just some. These are just some various. Past that, various examples. Oh, especially if I don't turn it on. I've got to turn it on. Hex Ghost. Oh, that's the wrong effect. See if I can get this thing to react. Oof, that's what I didn't want. Brian, this is for you. Next tracking synth. This one is something that I said that I wasn't doing here. This is an actual. This is an actual synthesizer, and I put it together very crudely. It's two oscillators that are tracking the pitch, the incoming pitch of the Unfortunately, it's made out of one of those stereo effects, and I can't get the second channel to work for the life of me.
Oh.
So I've got every other string. What's that? Yeah, that's kind of a weird one. And in this case, that's the only sound that I've played so far where we're not hearing the strings. That is, the system has an oscillator in there, and it's tracking the pitch of the string and then using the pitch and the volume of the string to drive an oscillator.
And is it going through MIDI or just?
No, there's no MIDI. It's just
has its own non-audio controls.
Yeah, it's got a pitch tracker, and that goes directly, a continuous pitch tracker, and that goes directly into an oscillator. And then there's just a volume control that's doing an amplitude track of the string.
So do they allow you to patch control signals separately from audio?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and controls can be routed down audio pathways if you want high-speed control.
Yeah. Nice.
Let's see. I wish I had more like crazy ass beautiful sounds to play for you. At home, when I've been experimenting with this thing, I have been really pleased in the last couple of weeks because I am starting to get to where there are real and useful sounds that are coming out of it. But I don't have a whole lot of examples of them. It's been a whole lot of, ooh, that sounds great. Hit save, hit save. Or no name at all. So I keep accidentally writing over the one called Untitled. And again, that's one of the 16 slots used on. Actually, two. But, if I could show more of this, and maybe it would be vaguely more interesting. So that's about what I have to say for the moment. I can keep going through sounds and examples, or if anybody has thoughts or questions, I can
How much
ramble on
of a
about any
program is run on the computer and how much in the Evertype box?
Everything's run on the Evertype box. The computer could go away once I've programmed it, but I haven't programmed enough control into the Eventide box yet to
So you don't need the computer.
don't need the computer's doing no audio signal processing at all. Oh, actually, that's
Is it a
not
terminal?
that's not true at the moment. I mentioned the 4 engines that exist. Right now, there's no way internal in the box for me to run from one engine to the other.
Oh.
That's coming soon, but it doesn't exist yet. So it's meant to be basically 4 effects processors that you then patch into something else. But it uses, it's got a Dante connection on it. And Dante is a network-based 128-channel audio routing standard. So basically you're running 128 channels of audio down an Ethernet cable. So what I do is I run that Ethernet cable basically I run the Ethernet cable from the computer into the Eventide, and I route signal out of the Eventide into the computer, out of the computer into the Eventide, out and back, out and back, out and back, out and back. The bummer about that is it takes 2 milliseconds for each one of those. So I'm slowed down by about 8 milliseconds right now, which is not cool, man.
Can't wire up a 25-pin.
Well, 25-pin doesn't work because I've got 8 channels or 6 channels per box.
Oh, yeah.
So I need, I actually need 18 channels to move from one of these, from A to B, or from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then out to the rest of the world.
Gotta send him a nasty letter.
I'm in touch with them pretty constantly. Let's see. Another interesting thing about having Dante in there is, in theory, I could run from my guitar, do some signal processing in the Eventide, pull that signal back into the computer very easily, because it's coming back into the computer, do processing in Max MSP or in Ableton Live or whatever, and then send the signal back out one more time. And in fact, I plan to be doing some stuff like that after the last chain, or between the 3rd chain and the 4th chain. I will go out to some spatialization software, do all of my panning, and then come back into my system and do some more processing of the pan signal. What else can I say?
Have you sent?
I managed to ramble that much in just an hour. Amazing.
Very good. Have you experimented with like sending like different patterns of strings to like left channel and right channel to get like wide traditional guitar sounds?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was that successful? Or?
Yes. Yeah, very successful. The box that I usually use is called used to use is the VG99, which also utilizes one of these hex pickups and does processing. The GP10 also is a really good one, very cost effective, and it allows you to do some things like the tuning, a little bit of hexaphonic distortion.
Mm-hmm.
What it doesn't allow you to do is make your own effects.
Mm-hmm. So that's more of like a sound generator box that, as you described before, like turns your notes into MIDI?
No,
Okay.
it's just doing processing also.
Okay.
But it does some hexaphonic processing, then sums it down to stereo, and then does some other, like regular guitar pedal kind of stuff. It also does modeling, so you can do like model a banjo or make it sound like a sitar, or
It does per string MIDI though too.
yes, and they do per string MIDI. Yes,
and that's actually kind of fun to play with, where different strings trigger different things.
absolutely.
But the Cosm modeling is not like a MIDI
It is not.
based thing, and
Nope.
that is signal processing.
Yep,
based?
it's all signal processing.
Okay,
Yeah. Cool. One of the things that I like, that one of the effects that I was really interested in developing that I couldn't do on the VG99, but I got very close to, was this idea of a harmonized delay on each string. So, not in this case. Here, let me turn this up. Each string here has a different rhythmic pattern and pitch pattern. So, next string together. The harmonies always stay in key, which is pretty freaking cool. Sort of like playing with a delay, but much more complex. And one of the core concepts that I like my musical systems to display or to have in them is, I want it to feel like I am playing with another human being, or there is something that is so complex in its reaction to what I'm doing that I have to reconsider what I was just about to play. I'm improvising with this other person, with this other device. So if I can make the system complex enough, but not so complex that everything just becomes random when I play a note into it, then I can start to get I can start to play with it, and start to sort of improvise with it. And that's my hope for this sort of delay system.
You can still be surprised, but not have it just run away from you.
Exactly. There's you could also imagine doing some things like polyrhythms across strings. So. Again, kind of interesting. Musical yet? Will be when that moment comes. When I start to piece the pieces together. Just the fact that you can do that now is enormous. Just the fact that I can do separate processing on each string. Somebody give me another thought or question.
Eventides are great for like big clouds of sound. I dearly love to hear something like that.
Big clouds of sound?
Yeah.
Well, you got it. You had one big cloud of sound. Here's a
like a really puffy
one. Yeah, puffy one.
Not the fluffy.
Yeah,
ones.
the last one was rather sharp. Like, more puffy, please.
Well, that was an interesting change. Changing from even harmonics to odd harmonics. Pull out some of those high harmonics, and they'll slowly disappear. There, I added in a pitch shifter to the entire 6-channel signal.
And it seemed to do that really smoothly. I was looking for a new note you brought in or something. There wasn't a glitch. When you go between programs, is that generally the way?
Well, in fact, it doesn't do that well. There is the algorithm that I was speaking of. Then there are presets for the algorithm, which are just settings. Changing from one preset to another is glitch-free. But if I take a different algorithm and drop it in there, there'll be a dropout. So this system it's also a studio tool. It's not really made to be like a live tool. There's a lot of thinking that goes into building a tool that's designed for guitarists who want to be on stage and they have specific needs, like being able to switch algorithms without the sound dropping out, or many times they want to do things like change from one sound to another, but have the original reverb maintain and just sort of fade out, And some of the boxes that are designed specifically for guitar players really have 2 totally separate signal processing chains that they just crossfade between, and I could set up a system like that here, but it would burn half my power, So that's going to be one of the challenges. It's going to be making this thing. Making this thing performable. And I think the way that I'm going to end up doing that is a piece is going to be a set of algorithms in a particular order. And then I will have a set of notes that I know will work with them, or a shape that I will try to work through on that. But I will make a piece that will be this big, long, 16 algorithm deep chain of effects, and then just simply go up and play it, and just change presets and just change individual parameters on it, rather than trying to change entire algorithms or entire presets or entire sets at a time. That make any sense?
Or just do like Alan Holdsworth and get 3 human height racks side by side and just turn them all on.
I consider what I carried in here today to be an obscene amount of shit to carry around. And in fact, the rig will get a whole lot smaller. This exists right now because I don't have a tuner inside this freaking $7,000 box. There's not a tuner. I got to write a tuner, and this has a really nice hexaphonic tuner in it. The speakers will disappear. I probably won't use a knob box. I'll just have an iPad. My foot pedal will definitely be there, and I can also hook up basically an endless number of foot pedals to control various parameters. So what I'm envisioning is having sort of a rig like this or an iPad to turn on different effects. So it just sits there. That one set of algorithms just sits there, and I just turn on and off different ones and control individual effects.
So can you write presets where, say, like for maybe one effect you only want it to be on like 3 strings and 3 strings only?
Yes.
And then maybe you have another preset that's for like the other 3 strings.
Yep.
And you can play these simultaneously, but you can turn different strings on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even within each effect, I could basically turn off. I could make a hexaphonic version of the algorithm and just have a universal on-off switch for any channels I want, and then just line them up in a row, and put two of them in a row. One of them would do channels 1 through 3. The next one would do 4 through 6, or however you want to do it. Another interesting thing about this box is it will do 8 channels, whereas all of these hexaphonic devices that exist on the market use this 13-pin standard and will top out at 6 channels because that's all that the connector can deal with. Made for regular guitarists, but this system could, in theory, support up to an 8-channel instrument, an 8-string instrument.
You can get 7 channels on this.
You can get 7 if you
You made it.
if you try and don't use the industry standard. Yes.
So are there any, like, in a perfect world, could you do anything with those extra connectors in your 19-pin connector, like a MIDI control or something like that?
Yes, that's exactly what they're set up for doing. So I'm using 7 pins right now, 6 plus ground in here, and the breakout box actually has a board in it that does CV to MIDI conversion. So if I put a bunch of buttons on here and connect them to other pins in here, connect those pins to that MIDI controller in there, I could turn buttons into MIDI controls or a joystick, or the next version of the guitar will indeed have a joystick and a whammy bar that's nothing but a volume knob, basically, and a couple of touch pads.
Mm-hmm.
And those will send commands to the system.
Cool.
And in fact, I don't even necessarily have to turn them to MIDI. I could just make the connectors pop out the back of that box and then run into the pedal inputs on the back of the Eventide, because the Eventide has space for 4 pedal inputs.
So you can make like momentary switches or something?
Exactly, I can make momentary switches.
Do you need a harmonics or a acoustic sustainer? And does it need to be as sophisticated as the one you're using?
Yes, I do think I need a sustainer, and the reason for that is Brian's done a lot of work on hexaphonic guitar processing and synthesis that is guitar synthesis that's really signal processing, rather than synthesizers. And one of the things that you will notice in that situation, I'll just turn the thing off basically, is having the ability to have this oscillator just run all the time is huge. So, like, it makes it much more like a synthesizer. It makes it much more like a set of oscillators. That's really the main reason to have this sustainer. And ideally, the multi-channel sustainer. There also exists some mono sustainers out there, but I like the multi-channel sustainer. Let's see if there's any. I don't have anything really great to show off why that totally matters, other than the fact that it's pretty great to just be able to sit and hold. If I didn't. If I didn't have that, it's nice, but it dies. More synth-like, if you will. But more synth-like isn't really what I'm shooting for. I want more control.
You could put a compressor on every string, but then it would just get dirty.
Yeah, and I will be doing that too, in addition. One of the there's a whole set of effects that I would really like to write. One of them that's related to that would be a freezing effect, and what that would be a just a set of little tiny looper, basically, that freezes about 100 milliseconds of the sound, just loops it anytime I press my sustain button, so that the sound just sustains forever, and I can actually lift my finger off, so don't even think about the sustainer system. So I can play a chord, freeze it, and then come up here and play a lead over that at the same time, which is a feature that the VG99 has, and it's fabulous. What I can't do on there that I'd like to be able to do on mine is have individual ones for each string that trigger separately. So I could build a chord by freezing this note, and then just touching this note, and then touching this note, and then this one, and then this one. And then I'd be able to build a chord that just sustains out of these notes that I couldn't possibly reach simultaneously.
And then turn off individual
And then
notes.
turn off individual ones. Like, they'd all be sustaining, and then I could play something on this note, on this string, and usurp that string for a moment, let go, and that new note would start playing. You know, shifting chords through time. This is what I think about, man. I do a crude version of that in my current concerts, but I'm taking all 6 strings and sustaining all 6 strings and just put them in one speaker. And then I move over to the next speaker and put all 6 strings in another one and another one. But that's awfully clunky. And now that I have this, it's a simple matter of programming, and it'll all be done.
So when did you finally put strings on this new guitar of yours?
This guitar has been in existence for about almost 2 years, year and a half, and it's been running through these store-bought processors, if you will, for a long time.
What's the I/O of your breakout box?
You can check it out. It's back there. It's just TRS connectors, stereo signal on TRS. So it's got 8 outputs on 4 stereo TRS connectors, and then I run that
because you're using fewer strings than it's capable of handling.
Yes,
like that?
yeah. It's set up to deal with up to 8 strings.
But how do you get into the hexaphonic input box from your breakout box?
The
13-pin guy.
There is a 19-pin to 13-pin adapter here. The front panel of the breakout box also has a 13-pin output that I'm running into this guy right now.
Awesome.
It used to be that this guitar had 13-pin on the back of it, but I switched it to the 19 recently.
Was that really hard to put in with all the 19 tiny connectors next to each other?
The first 2 times I did it, I ruined those very expensive connectors, and then I ordered one from the factory pre-wired. After I ordered the second one, they said, we make these pre-wired, right? Oh, how much more is that? It's $5 more.
So then you're able to splice in every wire?
It just comes with this array of 20 actually with the ground, 20 cables that just pop out at little connectors. So I just pop that into here and then connect it to little breakout points.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot easier than.
Who's responsible for drilling the right shapes of holes into that lovely guitar body there to fit all these accoutrements?
The guy who actually built it for me is a cat named David Micah, who's in he's now on the east side, but he was based just down the street from me in West Seattle. We corresponded for about a year about how we both loved ergonomic guitars and had some of the same great ideas, and neither one of us realized that we lived literally a block and a half from each other. I didn't know. I thought he was in Ohio or some shit. Wait, you're in Seattle too? Where? Really? Really? By the park? Really? Near the coffee shop? I am too. I'm at the coffee shop. You are too? What else can I say? That's my funny weird guitar system. And I hope that I will be doing some performances in this upcoming year.
A name for your artist?
No, I was never good at coming up with lyrics or clever names. It's just, hi, I'm Vance Galloway. I play ambient drum music. Here it is.